Welcome back to Beyond the Skyline, Real Estate and Lifestyle with Bill Brothers, the podcast where we explore the people, properties, and stories shaping the Magic City. Whether you're watching on YouTube, tuning in Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, thank you for joining. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment or question. It really helps us grow the show and keep these Miami conversations going. Today, I'm joined by someone who lives and breathes the evolution of Miami. Omar De Windt, Senior Vice President of Communications at Cervera Real Estate and host of the Miami Real Estate Podcast. Today, we're going to be diving into what Miami was back then. Think the days of Miami Vice, neon lights, and wild headlines, and how it's evolved into one of the most forward-thinking, luxury-driven, and global cities in the world. We'll explore the changing skyline, the cultural shift, and what's coming next. So Omar, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for having me.
And literally, like it was a year ago this time where I was actually on your show, the Miami Real Estate Podcast, which we'll actually drop a link in the description below. And I'm glad you can actually join me for my show today.
It's really nice, I have to say, to be in the other seat. You know, you're in control, you're driving. I'm just along for the ride.
Exactly. Yeah.
And for this ride, we have some whiskey that you brought, which is a nice twist.
Yeah, because I don't know when this is going to come out, but it's a Friday afternoon here at 3 p.m. And we're like, you know what? Let's have some Japanese whiskey to do our show. Relax a little bit and make it a good time. So,
yes, sir.
Thank you for being here.
Everybody here is above age, just for those that are wondering.
Yes. If you couldn't tell by the gray hairs on our whiskers.
Right.
But Omar, you've seen Miami grow and evolve on so many different levels. So what's your first image or memory that comes to mind when you think of old school Miami from like the 80s or even like early 90s?
Okay, so yes, and just to qualify, like I'm not that old, but I was born in 1985. So I would say that and by the way, which is true of a lot of Miamians now, I wasn't born in Miami. I was actually born in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic.
Okay.
But I moved to Miami with my family when I was 4 years old. So I'll give you both like my personal, and then I think when I think of, to your question, like Miami's like that first vision, let's say, of the 80s.
Yeah.
So my first, I guess, memory, which is funny, of Miami and as like a kid, is actually being in the backseat of a car, my uncle's car, and my uncle is driving and my mom was in the passenger seat, and I believe we were on the 836 going east.
Yeah.
To Miami International Airport, because I think at the time we were flying back to DR for something, and there was Latin music playing, and that is funny. Like when you think of memories associated with music,
yeah.
Like I remember and it was just very bright, sunny Miami day, and like fun music, and on the way to the airport, which you those know whenever you're traveling, there's like a fun vibe in the air. So that's kind of like how I remember Miami as a kid. It was just always like bright and fun. But to your question, when I think of it now, right, like you think of Miami, that a lot of people think of Miami Vice, and that sort of the 80s vibe was certainly, you can't say Miami in the 80s and Miami Vice without Cocaine Cowboys.
Exactly.
Without that sort of the thought of the pastels, the Ferraris, the narco wars and whatnot. But yeah, I think that was certainly a lot of Miami then. I think there was a whole nother part of Miami for those who lived here and grew up in the 80s. Mm-hmm. That was maybe just regular everyday life. But I think you can't go anywhere in the world and say Miami without people maybe instinctively, iconically thinking of the Miami Vice series or South Beach and things like that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because that actually kind of like rejuvenated the city in a way, because a lot of those Art Deco buildings, they were becoming run down and in disrepair. And then the Miami Vice production team came in and just overhauled them and then painted all of them into those pastel colors, into which we love and know, and which is still here today, which a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah, and actually it's a fun fact, and I don't know the name, so we'll have to fact check this, but there is a lady who is largely responsible. I want to say her name
Barbara
is
Capitan.
There you go. Barbara Capitan, was it?
Capitan, I believe.
Capitan.
It is, yeah.
So she's the one who did the preservation of the Art Deco district. which is from, I guess, from First all the way up to 15th Street. I want to say maybe goes a little further. But that's the reason why today, whenever you see that iconic neon strip, it's not 40, 50, 100-foot towers.
Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, in terms of preserving history.
It's fantastic. And it just mind-boggling, and it's crazy to me that at one point, like, people wanted to tear those buildings down, which I get it. They were old and dated, but they just needed a little TLC and love, and they brought it back to life. And that helped really grow the city and a tourist attraction to get people to come to Miami Beach and Miami because of that, because of the Art Deco.
For
It's
sure.
one of a kind, and these rare, like, great architecture that people are just are like dying to see.
Yeah, for sure. And listen, if you've never been to Miami, that and then somebody says Miami to you, you probably are automatically thinking of that iconic strip. Like everyone who comes here wants to go there. It's funny as a local, you almost never go there unless maybe you live on the beach, and even if you live on the beach, you're definitely probably not on Ocean Drive.
Yeah.
But it's cool. It's an institution. It became part of the worldwide image, and I'm sure we'll talk later about how it's evolved. But it's funny because that was one of the main go-tos, but now there's so much more to do and see in Miami.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And people, what you were talking about before, like if you haven't been here, you think of like Miami Beach and Miami being as one, but people don't realize it's actually two separate cities there.
Yeah, so there's like layers to the conversation, I guess, because Miami now, kind of, at least also in the real estate world, which you and I are both in, is a larger global brand that I think, at least as the way the Association of Realtors here sees it, refers to really the Tri-County area. So Miami, Broward, and Palm Beach.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people who aren't super familiar with Miami say, I'm going to Miami, but maybe they're actually going to Boca Raton, which is like 45 minutes away from here and completely different, let me tell you. But so in a larger respect, the region is Miami globally. But here in Miami, if you're actually looking in Miami-Dade County, you have Miami, the city of Miami, on the mainland. And then you have Miami Beach, which is the barrier island connected by several bridges. And in large part, that's what has globally been what people think of when they think of Miami. Although now some would argue that, downtown Brickell and even the Wynwood Walls and other areas are getting, Coral Gables are getting more national and global acclaim to sort of compete that Miami Beach.
And like I said, like people think of it all as one. And the thing that when I think about that comes top of mind is when 2010, I'm sure you remember this, when LeBron announced where he was going.
Taking his talents to Miami?
He's taking his talents to South Beach.
To South Beach, yeah.
And I'm thinking, I'm like, that's great, but you're not going to South Beach, right? You're actually going to downtown Miami.
But listen, I think to be honest, I see it as one. Maybe residents of the beach, maybe they feel otherwise, but to me, Miami is the city, the mainland, all the parts of Miami, like all the boroughs, all the pockets, including the beach.
Yeah.
Because that's part of the magic of living here. Now, as municipalities, like, sure, there's different zip codes and tax codes and whatnot, but, it's like if you're in New York, I guess, and you say, I live in, I guess, Manhattan. I'm gonna look really dumb here, but if you live in Manhattan, I guess you're not in Brooklyn, right? Are those different?
Yeah, they're different.
But it's still New York City.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's a borough. So Miami has boroughs now, I guess, like any global leading huge city.
Yeah, which is a good way to look at it. Yeah, because if you're in Manhattan, you're still New York, but then you also have Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island.
Right. And each one of those has its own characteristics and vibes and people, and that's all part of what's making a great city. Because before, I think, and again, I didn't grow up here in the 80s and even in the 90s, going back to the global thing, I grew up further north in Weston, which is also 45 minutes an hour from like Miami. And that's more of the suburbs of Broward County. Miami back then to us, it was like, oh, it was such a cool place where you would go.
Yeah.
Maybe had some family here to visit, or, as we got older and in high school, you would take the trip down to maybe you had a fake ID and you would want to get into a club. And that was like super cool when you go down to Miami. By the way, no matter how long you've lived here, whenever you go over the bridge, either the Julia Tuttle Causeway or the MacArthur Causeway, and you're going to or from South Beach, when you see the view and you're like, oh my God, what an amazing city that I live in.
It's amazing, and I'm glad that you mentioned that too, because even though it's kind of a short drive, my favorite drive is coming back from Miami Beach, South Beach,
Yeah.
over the 395
Uh-huh.
and the MacArthur Causeway into the city, because especially at sunset,
Yeah.
because you see this is when you see all the skyline, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yeah.
But you see all the skyline, all lit up at night with those orange and purple colors in the background. And you think to yourself, okay, this is exactly why I live in Miami.
Yeah.
This is why I'm here. And it never gets old driving that. And I
For
love it
sure.
every single time, for sure.
For sure. It's
Yeah.
very similar for me. I remember I had a fun experience. So I'm peppering in like my life story into this conversation, but in 2009, 2008, I want to say, when I graduated college, I moved to South Beach. I actually lived at a 3-story walk up on 12th and Drexel. I want to say the Wilbur.
Okay.
Shout out to
Okay.
anybody who's
Yeah,
listening
yeah.
who's at the Wilbur, right behind the Mansion nightclub. I don't know if Mansion is still there, but
No,
what an
that's been shut
amazing,
down for a long time
yeah,
now.
what
Yeah.
an amazing, when you just think about being a bachelor and moving to Miami, that was what began start like the beginning of more of my true love affair and relationship with Miami now as an adult.
Mhm.
Because, like I said, when you were kids, you would pop in and then you would go back to, let's say, Broward or Weston, which, while we're in the same general area, is
Yeah.
completely different. And I've had on my podcast a friend of the pod, Jeff Ransdell, who says you need a passport when you go from Miami to Broward County. He's not totally wrong. It's a
Yeah.
different vibe.
Yeah.
It's a different vibe. But anyway, where was I going with this? So so what now as I moved down here as an adult, okay, and then when you live in South Beach as your first experience as Miami, it's awesome. Like it's so cool. And I was working in the PR industry. So that was super fun. And actually back then, by the way, they were already saying people in South Beach that had lived here for a while and
Yeah.
grew up in there in the 80s and 90s, in the Johnny Versace days, in the Gloria Stefan days, the Madonna days. They were like, Miami Beach has sold out. It's so corporate now. It's not what it used to be.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I was thinking it's like super cool,
Yeah.
but it's funny because every time you go there, people will say that. Now they say it's definitely sold out.
Yeah.
But back then it was like kind of only half sold out. It was like starting to go corporate.
Yeah.
But it was super cool, and it for me again was so impressionable, and I think it's something that is true for a lot of people who move here now.
Uh-huh.
And I think a lot of people who are maybe listening or watching can start to relate because as we've had a lot of migrants in the last few years, especially post-COVID,
Mhm.
you move here and you have an idea, but then you start finding your communities and your peoples and your places to go and your hangouts, and all of a sudden it starts becoming one of your cities or your city. And I remember distinctly, and then I'll shut up and turn it back over to you. I remember distinctly when I really felt like Miami was my home was right shortly after, within a year of what I told you, and I was flying back on a work trip where we were in New York all week with my first boss, Tara. Shout out to Tara if you're listening, Nick and Tara. And we were flying back from a week in New York doing a press trip, and it was Friday night at like 8 o'clock or something. It was dark, and on approach into Miami International, and I just like look out the window and I see downtown as we're getting ready to land, and I got goosebumps. I was like, oof, this is cool, and this is my home, and I'm about to get off the plane and go to my 3rd-story walk-up, change, and go meet up with my friends and go out and have an amazing weekend because that's what we do in Miami. And that's what I was like, man, I really am lucky and I love living here.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean because I've been living here for 20 years now. And it's nice to go away, trips and whatnot, but I always get excited, like you said, when I'm flying in and I see the city and I'm like, hey, I'm back in Miami.
Right.
I'm like, this is my city, this is my home.
For sure.
And I love it too. And I always get goosebumps thinking about it too. So I know exactly that feeling, what you mean. So let's take it back to like Miami. What was Miami's reputation nationally and globally back in the day during the Miami Vice era? Do you feel like it was real? It was perception? in terms of like Paradise Lost. You know the Paradise Lost, the Time magazine,
That was the Time magazine. Yeah.
Cocaine Cowboys.
Listen, I think it was. I think two things can be true at once, but I think to an extent, and I wasn't living here at the time, but yeah, I think it was real. I think if you've seen the documentaries, and we mentioned Billy Corbin a couple of times, both off air and on, it's well documented. I mean, there was certainly narco like wars and activity here. Miami, of course, being a gateway city, is natural, but I think and it was Miami Vice and but I think the show in a way, whether it was positive or negative, like the actual reality of, I mean, obviously it wasn't positive, the drug war, but I'm saying whether you look at it as was a show good or bad, I think ultimately it was great PR. Even if it had the stigma, people still wanted to be here. I mean, the Ferraris, the pastel suits, that whole thing, it was a vibe,
Right.
and it was global. So I think the city has come a long way and did a great job of cleaning up the image and it really, I saw it start to take shape in the late 2000s and especially in the early 2000s, late 2000s, early 2010s, where I like to say now we went from Miami Vice to Miami Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've always tried to
Yeah.
make that a thing. It's just never really fully caught off, but it's true. I mean, we've come such a long way. It's obviously you don't have the drug war situation, of course. The city is safe. In the 90s, I want to say that there was a famous reporting of German tourists getting assaulted and hijacked, carjacked. You know, South Beach was dangerous. Like there was abandoned dog track and there was an abandoned dog track and like escorts or prostitutes. I'm not sure what the PC term is today. That's what was South of Fifth. And actually, credit to Cervera Real Estate, where we both actually work, was part of the team that worked alongside the developers of Related to turn South of Fifth from this like crime-ridden area into one of the most expensive zip codes in the world. And that's where there's beautiful high-rise towers, right where the cruise ships and container ships come and go out of government cut.
Yeah.
But in the 90s, that you went to South Beach and it was like, be careful.
Right.
It's not like that anymore. Miami is very safe. It's very family friendly. Miami and Miami Beach.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's really come a long way. I think also, and cut me off whenever you want, but in the 2000s, one of the big important things that contributed to this Miami Vice to Miami Nice was the proliferation of arts in the city. And it really, I think one of the cornerstones of that was the establishment of the Adrian Art Center in downtown Miami.
Right.
Now, downtown Miami was also like similar to South Beach, you know, it was dangerous, very dangerous. And you would go to a Heat game at they're not where they are now. It's not the Kaseya Center. There was a different arena.
Yeah, downtown, like just a few blocks
And
away.
you would,
west
you
of
know, it was not safe.
Yeah.
But little by little, you know, gentrification and development and vision and foresight and bringing the Art Center for the Performing Arts, thanks to Adrian Arsh, it was a huge thing. Eventually, we got Art Basel, Miami Beach.
Yeah.
A lot of people have heard of Art Basel, and by the way, it's pronounced Basel, not Basil.
Yeah.
Art Basel was huge, a big contemporary art fair, put us also on the global map for art, and so on and so forth. And it's continued. There's many museums here. I won't bore you with the whole list, but it's really, the arts and culture has become a real part of our city, which I think is necessary for a true global city. Like, it's not just a beach town.
Right. And I think Wynwood has played in a huge effect with that. I remember when I moved down here 20 years ago, the Wynwood Art Walk was just starting up, and they discontinue it for a little while, and they're actually bringing it.
It was the second Saturday, right?
Second Saturday.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
It's funny because in 2008, just to show you how things changed, 2009, our PR firm was launching one of the first nightclubs. It was essentially the first nightclub in Wynwood called Cafeina Lounge, to shout out to Yvette if you're listening, which was on 23rd. It's actually still there on 23rd Street. And because at the time, I believe they only had, was it Joey's? So Wynwood,
Yes.
not everybody knows this, but Tony Goldman, who's a visionary who did the Soho district in New York,
Mm-hmm.
who re-envisioned that was the pioneer of Wynwood, and so he established, I think it was called Joey's,
Right.
was right there and on the corner of 23rd ish or 25th, and back then, historically, Wynwood was, I believe, a Puerto Rican borough, and it was known for warehouses and art.
Yeah.
But little by little, so Tony, saw this vision, had this vision, and then Cafeína opened. And as we were doing the press and the PR, like this is before Uber.
Yeah.
So we would send journalists, as one does in the PR world, to go like review and sort of see a new place. And they're like, where are you sending me? What's going on? They call the cab driver. It's like, am I going to get carjacked over here? Like,
Yeah.
where am I? But now, I mean, you look at Wynwood, it's
The place
global.
to be.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's worldwide, and
Yeah.
it's not. I mean, there's flagship stores, there's luxury boutiques, there's you got Pura Vida. You got, it couldn't be more posh. But it's funny, like from 2010 to now, it's just in a span of 10, 15 years, how a neighborhood just kind of becomes a global destination, and that's the type of thing that happens here in Miami, and the vision that people have.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Tony Goldman, like he just had an eye of coming in and rejuvenating an area too. And I think before he passed too, he was part of doing something with the Miami Marine Stadium as well too.
I believe so. Yeah, he had it, and now that is, I've been reading. I saw something that it's getting new life.
Yes.
The stadium.
Yeah.
They're gonna turn it into a concert.
Yeah,
venue.
concert. Well, they had concerts there and like out floating like soccer stadium that they
Sure.
want to do as well too,
That's
and make a park it too as well too, which they should because it's been sitting there abandoned for I think 30 years now.
Yeah, I think that area, the Miami Seaquarium, needs some love.
Yeah.
It's ironic. I guess I don't know if ironic is the back then in the time frame that you're talking about, the 80s and 90s. Those were places to go, and as the other areas have sort of evolved, somehow that has fallen by the wayside. But it would be great if we had a full ecosystem where, the Seaquarium and the Marine Stadium and all these things were, and I'm sure they will. I mean, these things will come back. Kind of like, let me jump around, go to Coconut Grove. That has seen life cycles where, Coco Walk was one of the places to go in like the 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
And then I think with the proliferation of, I don't know, with like South Beach, and then maybe with Wynwood coming up, like Grove like took like a dip.
Right.
But in the 2015 to 2020 era, it kind of like started coming back up, and Coco Walk did this whole master plan thing, and I love the vibe there. And they have Class A office and amazing restaurants. And I was actually at the theater last night with my wife. Like, it's a cool, charming, super awesome vibe in the Grove. And I mean, it makes sense, but
Yeah, and don't forget too, you mentioned Coco Walk in the Grove, which is amazing, and then don't forget too the Playhouse, where they're renovating and they actually tore down half of it,
yeah.
and then that should be done in the next like 2 or 3 years too, which is going to be a big addition with the theater back there because that was in
About the Coconut Grove Playhouse?
yeah the Coconut Grove Playhouse.
I actually didn't know that. You just
Yeah, when you drive by down there, they tore it down like half of it, but they still have the front facade. And that was a place that was abandoned since 2008, and it's just sitting there like the Marine Stadium. So
yeah.
I'm glad that they're doing something with it, revamping it, and it's an even big rejuvenation for the area. Especially
What are some of your favorite restaurants in the Grove? I mean, for anybody who's listening here is maybe getting to know Miami, I want to shout out Ariete in the Grove, which
Yes.
is also Michelin starred. I mean, great vibe, great food,
Yeah.
great vibe. But what about you?
So my favorite restaurants in the Grove are actually a new one. I just went to a couple months ago. Is Osobuco.
I've heard of it. I haven't been.
Amazing, great ambiance. Food is delicious, and service was incredible. And it's kind of got like this indoor-outdoor flow, which I really like.
Nice.
Of course, Carbone Vino, which is really good.
Yeah.
Great food and atmosphere as well.
Nice.
Bellini is really good.
Yeah.
Because you have those views of the roof and the water and whatnot. And Amal is really great on the ground level there. And I haven't tried level 6 yet, which is the rooftop of Amal. But again, you have great views, and you have just you can see the whole city and everything, especially at sunset.
Yeah.
Which is really, really incredible.
That's great. I'm sorry, I should be asking you questions.
No, but I like it.
Revert back to
I like it. Yeah, you're in host mode right now too, which is good.
That's funny.
No, but there's so many great restaurants in
Absolutely.
the Grove that which I've talked about in previous podcasts. Miami, we're talking about how it's shifted and it's evolved. We really didn't have any great restaurants in the
Yeah.
past. Now,
I,
like we have hundreds of great
yeah, I
restaurants.
remember. Okay, so one of the icons obviously is Joe's Stone Crab, and you had Smith and Walensky. Like when I arrived in Miami, those were institutions, if you will. Not
Hmm.
necessarily like I wouldn't say trendy, but they were like nice go-to restaurants, right? Um, Prime 112 was a hit like on South Beach. Like that
Yeah,
was like where like the celebs were at. You had South Beach. I feel like had has good restaurants, but then really in Design District in downtown. I mean, you had Zuma come in. Brickell now is amazing restaurants. I have
yeah,
the restaurant scene in Brickell is crazy. I was just at Claude
yeah.
last
Claudia,
week.
fantastic food there.
Fantastic, like
Amazing.
South of France vibe.
Then we have Amazonico, which is opening up next week, next Friday.
Okay.
And then they're going to have a nightclub, which is going to be the first true nightclub in Brickell called Selva on the
Wow.
third floor. So these places that you talked about, there was nothing there. And now it's just like there's so many things to do. So if you live in a pocket of Miami, like DeGro, Brickell, or Wynwood, or even Edgewater, you necessarily don't have to leave.
Yeah.
You can stay in there and you have everything at your fingertips right there.
Yeah,
But
no,
that's the great thing about Miami. You can stay there, or you can go to these other parts, amazing parts
sure.
of the city that we have.
For sure. And I mean, we named a few, but there's honestly so many. And I mean, in Design District and in Wynwood, there's really great restaurants. I'm not gonna like do a laundry list, but I'm saying there's just so many options to explore. If you're new to the city, like do your research.
Yeah, ton a
Yeah.
Michelin rated restaurants as well too. So let's talk about the skyline and real estate transformation that's happening in Miami. One of the most visible changes is the skyline, which has grown tremendously since the 80s. How have you seen architecture and urban planning evolve since the earlier decades in the past?
Sure. So, I mean, I think it's a good question. It's super important. The skyline, in short, I've seen it get more dense, but also like the architects and the idea of starchitects coming to the city is really cool. It was, I believe, what was his name? Was it Steven Sager? I want to, or Seeger Schwartz, I would
Oh,
say
right, yes.
was what, and Bernardo Fort Brescia, who's also been on our podcast. Some of the original like amazing Miami like starchitects,
Hmm.
American starchitects. Then you had Bjark Ingels,
Yeah.
who's I believe he's from Amsterdam or he's European.
Yeah.
I sound very ignorant right now. He's European. Bjark Ingels is amazing, and he did the Twisting Towers in Coconut Grove,
Yeah.
which looks like two, the dancing towers they call them. We had Zaha Hadid
Yeah.
do 1000 Museum. I mean, these are all like from 2010 to 2020. You really had iconic buildings coming into the skyline, which was cool. And then Aston Martin, which just recently delivered, was launched in 2017. That's at the mouth of the Miami River. That actually, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but that was designed so that if you flip the building onto its side, it's actually the outline of an Aston Martin, I think DB Vanquish.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so next time
I
you're
did not
looking at
know.
it, picture it like flat and from the base and then at the top that kind of looks like a sail. If that were to go horizontal, it's that silhouette of a car.
Oh, I had no idea. Now, when I look at it now I'm gonna have to like really like analyze it and see that. But I think you. Well, I know you're right. When I
Yeah.
think about it now.
So it's been evolving like that, which is great. I want to see it go further because I was having this conversation with a colleague, Beto, recently. It's like we love the Miami skyline, and then sometimes when we compare it then to New York or Chicago, then you see it's that, but like the density continues to go in. So we have a great core, and look, we're a young city. It's only like a little over 100 years old. So what we've done in 100 years compared to I think what other cities have done in 100 years, in many respects, not just in the skyline, is tremendous. So I commend that, but we still have a ways to go, is what I'm saying. The second part of your question, urban planning and public works, I think Miami's done a great job because things like the underline railway that are not railway, the linear park, the underline that's connecting the Brickell downtown urban core all the way south through Dadeland. It's like a 8 mile or so. You can fact check me on that, John.
I think it's like 15 or 20 miles. It's
15 or
pretty-
20 miles. It's a
yeah.
linear park that
Right.
just goes through so many different under the metro rail. that gets beautified. There's activations like that's happening. There's also the that's the underline. Then there's gonna be the under deck in the downtown area, which is gonna be under the new Signature Bridge,
Yeah.
which is another part of the skyline in a way.
Yeah.
That's under development. There's also a Bay Walk that's planned that's gonna connect from the Design District Edgewater area along the bay all the way down through Brickell for pedestrian friendly for people to walk. So those things are cool in terms of walkability, connectivity, and we need more of that. But I think it's these are things that a real city has, and you start to see. It also allows families and like people to actually live in the urban core, like you would see in New York and these other cities, and you've seen a lot of that in the last 5-6 years, where downtown and Brickell, you see strollers everywhere, you see families, people walking. Back when I had first moved here, again, it was more of you came and you worked in Brickell, and then you like commuted home. And that was certainly true in the 2000s, but by the 2010s, it started shifting, and here we are today.
Right, yeah. And then since we're right on the water, the bay and everything, you need that walkability. And people they wanna run, they wanna bike along the water, and you need to have that there. You need that accessibility in order to do that, because that's why you live in a place like Miami, so you're close to the water, and have
For sure.
everything at your fingertips. But let's talk about, like, from a real estate communication standpoint. Um, what is the messaging around Miami? How has that changed over the years? And what are we telling the world about the city today?
Okay, so that's a great question. We, from a communication standpoint, so it goes back to, I'll give it to you in a nutshell. The whole Miami Vice to Miami Nice. So what do I mean when I say Miami Nice? Like when we talk about Miami now, and we've been doing a lot of talking about it over the summer, really,
Yeah.
like it's not just why Miami, it's why Miami now. And what that really means is this is a city that at just over 100 years old is really an icon for the rest of the world, in the sense that it is inclusive organically. Like there's just people from all over the world here that are welcoming. It's got great strategic location. So it's not only a gateway to Latin America, but it's got amazing connectivity to the US, Canada, Europe, Middle East. I mean, the only place we don't have direct flights to is Asia, mainland Asia, but we're working on it. It's a global port of entry. We have improved via rail, the Bright Line, the connectivity through, to Orlando and now soon to Tampa. So the connectivity is great. We talked a little bit about the transit in the city and walkability, but also there's an amazing like business. It's not just real estate and it's not tourism. Like now, we have big businesses like Citadel, like finance giants coming here. We have great tech companies relocating their companies and their staff here, which means, jobs and people contributing to the economy and the GDP. We have a great quality of life, in the sense that, we talked about the restaurants, we talked about the arts and culture, there's great retail. Of course, we've known for what we started at the top. You got the beach, great weather. You have all of these things. We have amazing healthcare, some top ranked institutions, like Baskin Palmer is #1 eye in the world. We have the Ryder Trauma Center, which is one of the only level 1 trauma centers. Great network through Baptist and UM. Education, we have the #1 rated private school in the U.S., which is Ransom Everglades.
Okay.
Other great private schools like Carrollton, Gulliver, very nicely ranked private elementary and sorry, not private, public elementary and middle. We need more schools, but like Ken Griffin famously said on a Bloomberg interview, like more schools and more of that is the problem of a thriving global city, and you want that instead of a dying city. So the education, a lot of great options, and then last but not least, it's the value proposition, because you have all the things I just mentioned: thriving business economy with sustainable jobs, plus a global gateway that's connected, and an amazing quality of life that people want, plus demand, because people were always coming here. But if you look at the projections post COVID, It spiked and it's continuing to go up at a stable basis. You have all of those things, which means that there's a need for real estate, which causes the values to go up. And the values historically for the last 25 years, yes, there was a 2008 bubble and recession, which affected not just Miami, but the city, the state, the country, and the world. But we recovered from that sound with cash. So we came out of that very stable and solid, and the prices have continued to appreciate in a stable basis. But when you compare us to New York and Los Angeles and London and Tokyo and Dubai, these other leading global cities, in Monaco, Miami is a great value.
Yeah.
So
when you look at the price per square
when you
foot,
look at the
and what
price
you
per
purchase.
square foot and what you get, so what again? I tried to keep it short, but it's a long way to say that you have all of these things plus demand, equals value proposition. Plus people who are just nice and happy and welcoming and optimistic.
Yeah.
And that's what you get here in Miami.
And exactly, it's like Miami now. So now is the time to purchase and buy, because prices are continue to go up because of the demand. People want to be here too, because if you don't purchase now, in like 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, you're going to look like, hey, why didn't I buy back then?
Yeah.
And I hear that all the time from clients, be like, hey, I wish I had bought such and such at a certain point. And it's just like, well, I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's going to continue to go like that because of what's happening in the city. And I'm glad you say that about Ken Griffin with that message. When when you have a guy like that, he brings his whole company down here and is speaking so highly of Miami, buying up all these properties and everything. I think that's a huge deal for Miami and the way it's shifting and where it's heading from now as well, too.
Absolutely.
So, Omar, you work with a lot of developers and agents at the moment. And what are some of the most exciting trends that you're seeing in new development right now?
Exciting trends in new development. That's a good question. And like I mentioned, I did not go deep into the outline you sent me. So I'm really thinking on the spot here. No, the new trends so let me talk about it from two ways. So on the actual product side, I will say that some of the trends I'm seeing in new developments that developers are delivering, well, units in many cases have gotten smaller than, let's say, like buildings that were delivered in the 90s and 2000s. You've seen the advent of, in the last several years, short-term rental approved product, which makes sense in terms of how people are using and buying real estate, and especially in Miami being a very tourism and business, we were talking about, in and out city. So that we've seen that happen, but then also like amenities have been shifting, and also I've seen a sort of demand for wellness oriented
I was just thinking that,
and
yeah.
sustainability incorporated into designs. One of the new developments that Cervera is representing is the residences at 1428 Brickell, right here in the financial center, and they were the first building ever to be designed with a solar backbone. So it's not only a savings in terms of energy and electricity for the building, but also in the environment. And you're seeing, customers are looking for more wellness oriented options, which reflects sort of the zeitgeist in like society. On the marketing side, if you want to sort of look at that aspect, we were just having conversations about it earlier, like how do we market new developments these days? There's a lot more focus on video and storytelling and just reels and like humanizing both the product and the people behind the product, and sharing that message.
Yeah.
So I would say those are some big trends. Obviously in Miami and probably in other major cities, branded residences have been a trend.
I was just going to ask you that too.
Okay.
What your thoughts are on like branded residences? Yeah.
So well, let's go there. I mean, I think it's a good question. I have actually, as a licensed realtor, sold both branded and unbranded, and I think that it depends what you're looking for. I guess it depends.
Yeah.
the brand can bring value, but I've seen the executions like where maybe like, does it really make sense? Sometimes you're looking at it, you're like, X fashion label on the building, and you're like, okay, like, do I, not to disparage it, but I'm just like, I guess like, maybe it's cool for some
Yeah.
owners. At the same time, maybe you're an enthusiast of that brand, or it's a hospitality brand that brand brings benefits to it in terms of the services that they offer, and also maybe if you're traveling, ownership of let's say a hospitality branded residence has extended benefits outside of your home,
Right.
which can make sense. Also, unbranded, a benefit there, going back to the residences at 1428 Brickell, is conspicuously unbranded. The developers made that choice to put the money instead into the quality of the finishes. So I think that, has its own positive. I'm not sure if I'm fully answering the question,
No,
but
you
I
are.
guess it depends on who you are as a buyer and what you're looking for.
Right. Yeah. Because it all depends because everybody is different. So some people want that like branded residence where it's named after a car because they have that car and they just like that lifestyle. Or
By the way, we were talking. Sorry, I just hit my mic. We were talking about Aston Martin earlier, which was represented and sold by Cervera Real Estate, where we're at. Full disclaimer. One of the cool things there, you were saying, if you like the car, like with certain buildings, I know they gave the buyers a limited edition Aston Martin, like DB11, maybe. I might have butchered that, but it was a DB something,
yeah.
Miami edition. And the lucky buyer of the triplex penthouse, which was like 50 million plus, got a one of 24, not even street legal Aston Martin Vanquish. So in that sense, again, if you're like an aficionado of the car maker, it totally makes sense. Plus, hey, who doesn't want to say I own an Aston Martin, like as a brag? Like, you live, those buyers probably live in Monaco, wherever. It's like, oh yeah, I have an Aston Martin in Miami.
Yeah, which is such an appeal. And then speaking of cars, like we even have buildings now in Miami where you can actually park your car in your living room in certain
Wow.
buildings too, in sunny aisles where you go in the car and you're going up and your car is literally parked in there
I guess,
too.
yeah, if you're an auto diehard and you want that, like your wife may not want that, but yeah, if
Yeah.
you want your car in your living room, that's
Yeah,
cool.
we're talking about the Porsche
Yeah,
design
yeah, yeah, of
building
course.
and then the Bentley building too, where you can do exactly the same things
Yeah,
too. Some people like that, and some people are like, okay, that's not really my cup of tea.
sure.
But I guess that's the whole point of the branding too. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna appeal to some people, but you're also gonna not appeal to
Yeah,
some
I guess
people
what's
as well.
important is that, we give people the options, and that's one of, going back to the common thread of this conversation, the evolution of the city, is that it's nice that the brands feel that they can sustain, selling and coming to the city, and that vote of confidence, and then also it's just a different product type and offering for the end user.
Yeah, and then in Miami, there's plenty of options of what you're looking for. What you
Yes,
want branded, not branded, short-term rental, mid-rise, low-rise. I mean, there's something for everybody here in Miami, I think.
absolutely.
So, Omar, let me ask you a question. So, how has the cultural identity of Miami shifted in the past 20 to 30 years? Are we still a Latin American gateway? Are we something more? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a good question. I think Miami in its core is always going to be a great gateway to Latin America, and
Hmm.
that's nice and that's important and that's something to cherish. Latin America is an amazing, beautiful, part of the world, and here, like I mentioned this, I think at the top, that inclusivity that we have here organically because of all these different cultures from Latin America coming here, um, makes us naturally welcoming. Like, as long as you're coming to provide and work hard or bring ideas or bring capital to fund, like, that everybody's like, great, like, come on in.
Yeah.
What's cool, and I think how it has evolved, and most specifically in the last 5 years, is that it's more Americanized, in the sense that you have we like to joke here that, like, the US discovered Miami during COVID.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it 100% goes back
yeah.
to this Miami Vice to Miami Nice, because people might have come here and visited, in 2010, 2013, 2015. They often come and visit, but a lot of the things we've talked about have really flourished between 2010 and 2020. So when people came here during COVID, and they're like, oh wait, like Wynwood, whole art scene. Oh, there's like 8 or 9 museums, or like, Bal Harbor is not the only place to shop.
Mm-hmm.
Look at all these Michelin-starred restaurants. Oh, the Grove is back. Like, and there's stuff here in substance. And so New York, New Jersey, Chicago, California, a lot of these places saw mass migration here. And yes, they stayed. Some people moved back after COVID, but by large and far, they have stayed, and the DMV records can prove that. And like I said, Ken Griffin relocated Citadel here and his top executives, and he said in his own words on that Bloomberg interview, which I encourage everybody who's listening here, if you're interested in Miami, watch it.
Yeah.
He said not one of his top executives have asked to leave or go back to Chicago. So,
Which is huge. That's saying a lot.
which is saying a lot, and that's why the country clubs here have an 8-year waiting list, and the schools get in line, but on the waiting list. But so yeah, the cultural identity has shifted to be more domestic U.S. Again, which is great because we're inclusive, and now you're seeing more and more Europeans and Middle Easterners also starting to uptick. I think Italians especially like Miami Beach. And yeah, so we're multicultural.
Yeah. So we keep talking about that Bloomberg interview with Ken Griffin. So I think I'll drop that in the description below so people can check that out as well too. Now, speaking of going back to Miami Real Estate Podcast, which you're the host of, which we'll also drop a description in the link below.
Thank you.
So you've had a front row seat to Miami's growth and experience and everything. What are some of the biggest takeaways that you've gotten from some of the guests on your show?
That's a good question. I think, look, let me segment this question because our show covers, and thank you for giving me the platform, we talk to realtors about how to be successful in real estate, and even more specifically in Miami real estate. So a lot of our conversations are geared towards talking to professionals like yourself, or subject matter experts that relate to real estate, i.e. how to market yourself, how to negotiate, how to read the market trends, how to work with customers. And then the other side is more of a why Miami exploratory, kind of like we're having today, like an analyzing market trends and sort of how did this become that and that type of thing. So different perspectives. But so on the first one, with business, one of the biggest takeaways I've gotten, which is shouldn't necessarily be groundbreaking, but it's like work hard and have a great attitude and build a relationship, not a transaction, and approach things with a positive, genuine vibe, and you will reap the rewards.
And you think that would be common sense, but it's really not. And
and I see it, and you see it working with some others. Like not everybody, acts with the same diligence and professionalism that you want. But I think if you're one of the biggest takeaways, and I truly believe it, is just be wear your heart on your sleeve and treat others how you want to be treated. And whether you're gonna make $1 million or $1,000. Treat that client like they're your top client, and they will come back to you. They will refer to you. They will be loyal to you, and also stay in touch with that client. Like I said, build a relationship, not a transaction.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest takeaways on the Miami side. I would say that the biggest takeaway is either like buy now or pay more tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's how the market is kind of gone. There's a funny story. I think it was Harry Hemsley. I want to say it was Harry Hemsley who said this. It might have been another famous developer, but let's use Harry Hemsley as an example because the takeaway is the same. Where somebody asked him, he was like, they were standing on the rooftop of a building, and he said, I own that one, I own that lot, I own that lot over there, and I own that building. And the person said, how did you get all those buildings? And he said, I overpaid for them 10 years ago.
Yeah, right.
But today they were worth exponentially more.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the joke and the point is the same. It's like, well, you might feel like you're paying a little bit above, or maybe you're paying full asking. But it's, if all goes well and there's no crystal ball, no indicator here, don't, come after me. Everything,
Yeah.
things have gone in a certain direction in Miami for all the reasons that we've talked about throughout the course of this conversation. And so that's kind of the takeaway.
Yeah. Well, okay. Now you just kind of transitioned into my next question.
I love it.
Yeah. So we're talking about going from the past. Hey, I bought this. So I bought this years ago. So where do you see Miami headed in the next 5 to 10 years? Is this something we should be getting excited about? Are there any concerns? Like where do you see Miami headed in the future?
Yes, excited is the short term, optimistic, and if all goes well, trending up,
Yeah.
right? With no guarantees, because there's no guarantees in life. But what I've seen since I have been in the real estate world through marketing and also as a licensed associate, but also living here, is that we recovered from the 2008 recession and that market crash, which we shouldn't gloss over that. We learned a lot of lessons.
Mhm.
Regulations changed. Miami set a new framework in the U.S. for how new development, rules and whatnot were conducted
Mhm.
as a learning. But most importantly, all of those buildings, most if not all, that got in trouble during the bubble were ultimately built and delivered by the developers and bailed out in large part by Latin America, by cash buyers. So we came out of that very strong and solid.
Mhm.
Then we've been bolstered by high demand and occupancy. These buildings, they have people in the units, and thus is why you're getting the rents that you're getting. And sometimes, depending on the ebb and flow, it's a seller's market or a buyer's market, and you're either getting close to asking, or you're getting, during the time of COVID, you were getting above asking and 6 months paid in advance. That's not the norm, but things ebb and flow. Right now, we're a little bit in a buyer's or like tenants market, so you can negotiate a little bit, but not a lot.
Mhm.
Not a lot. Like, people are still getting full asking if it's in a great location, it's a good property.
All right.
So, and all the indicators like we've talked about here in terms of demand, in terms of business, in terms of the fundamentals of location, in terms of the quality of life, indicate that we should continue to see an upward trajectory. Oh, the second example I wanted to give, now I remember,
Mhm.
the bubble, but then COVID. COVID was like, what's going to happen? We were kind of sitting here, I was sitting in this very room doing a podcast with Alicia a couple days after COVID sort of blew up and became a thing, at least here.
Mhm.
And we did a podcast on the Miami Real Estate Podcast. And she said, I think and I feel that what we're looking at is sort of like a smack in the face with a 2x4, not a small smack in the face, but like a 2x4 hit you, sort of like we saw when the planes hit the Twin Towers and the horrible attacks of 9/11, and sort of everybody sort of paused and the world stopped,
Mhm.
at least in the US. But I think the whole world in a way stopped, like, economically. But then really quickly it sort of reset and we came back.
Mhm.
And with COVID,
Very quickly.
very quickly, and with COVID, Miami, I think, is the sole city who benefited the most in terms of population migration and business migration after COVID. We were right alongside Austin, but you've seen the news likely that
Mhm.
a lot of businesses have pulled out of there because they don't have a lot of the other intangibles and fundamentals that we have here that, again, we've talked about in terms of economic stability, geographic location, multicultural diversity, and quality of life, and the water.
Mhm.
They don't have all that. So Miami remains one of the few markets that continues to get projected to perform well or outperform when others are kind of like dealing with uncertainty or going backwards.
Mhm.
So that's a very long way to answer your how do I see the 5 to 10 years questions. I think it's great.
Yeah, because Miami is the place to be, and as we talked about earlier, like this was a place where people will come party for like a weekend or maybe a week, and then they go back to whatever city they came from. But now people are coming here, they're living here, and they want to stay here, and they see a future here.
Absolutely.
And the growth here is just, I'm excited for it. I can't wait to see what happens in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think sky's the limit for
For
Miami.
sure. I mean, listen, you can still party here.
Yeah, you could definitely
the key
party
is
here.
you can still live the rest of your life 365 days a year here. And depending on where you are, what stage you are in your life, Miami has amazing things for you. I mean, like if you're going back, you just graduated, you're starting your business here. Maybe you're living in Brickell or Edgewater, which is cool, or the beach, and you're going out with your friends, you're partying, you're meeting, a significant other, and like you have restaurants to go to, you have cultural things to do. You don't have to just party. You can do a lot of fun stuff as you grow up. You get married, maybe move to the suburbs. I know you just did that. You're getting married. Congratulations. You have kids, there's great parks, there's dog parks, there's great schools, there's great networks of like things to do. We have paddle, pickle, you can go rowing on a canoe, you can go out boating. You can do things like there's and as you get older and it continues and so on and so forth. So and maybe you're not partying at the club, but you're partying at your house with a beautiful view, of the water or, whatever. But it's a good time here, and you're surrounded by people who are optimistic about the future.
Yeah, and I love that because you can never get bored here. There's always something to do, and you're in Miami, and it's an exciting place to be. Now, Omar, to kind of like wrap this up, this is a question I ask all my guests, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. If you could give one piece of advice for your younger self, what would it be?
Invest in Miami real estate sooner.
Okay, you're the second person that said that.
Oh yeah,
coincidentally enough, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and for all the reasons that we just talked about too.
Yeah,
because it's better to do it now sooner than later, because then you always end up regretting it or kicking yourself in the butt. Hey, why didn't I do this? So
for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, invest in Miami real estate because it's only trending up. So. Well, Omar, I thank you for being on the show here, and
this was a lot of fun.
I appreciate you joining me, and it was definitely a lot of fun having the
Thank you
Japanese
for
whiskey
the
here.
Centauri, yeah. Shout out to Centauri.
Yeah, delicious. So thank you for being here.
It's nice to be on this side of the chair. There's a lot less pressure.
Yeah, right. I hope I didn't grill you too hard.
No, this was fun. I could talk about this all day.
Yeah, I know it's Miami, so this is what we do. So
yes,
I love it. I love it. And to everyone tuning in, thank you for being part of Beyond the Skyline community. If you enjoy this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your fellow Miami enthusiasts. And remember, in Miami, it's not about where you live, it's about how you live. Until next time, I'm Bill Brothers, and I'll see you beyond the skyline.